This video provides an overview of setting up a cluster of access servers for load balancing and redundancy. But most of the time, we set up only one access server on our network, and as you can see on the screen, users or other sites gain access to our resources. Let's look at what happens if this access server goes down for any reason. Let me go ahead and log into my access server here, type the password here, and here we go. We're logged into the admin user interface. Let me look at see the user permissions. We have one user here, Robert. So we're going to connect as Robert to this network right now. So let me type the password, and okay, here we go. Robert is connected. Now, if you remember, we had a file server on our network. So I'm going to ping that file server. Here it is. The address is 10.124.0.22. So let me go ahead, type this. Here we go. And we get a reply back. So this is typical. Right now we're connected and everything is good. Now let's go ahead and stop the VPN services and see what happens. So I'm going to go back to my admin UI, status overview, and here we go. I'm going to stop the VPN services. So basically our access server is out of the equation. And let's look at the reply. Here we go. Request timed out. So we got disconnected, obviously, because our access server is offline right now. When it comes to set up a cluster of access server, typically this setup includes multiple access servers that store configuration files in a shared database. Clients connect to nodes based on a round-robin DNS record, and VPN connections are managed from a single global subscription licensing pool. Clustering ensures high availability by load balancing VPN connections and data communications across multiple servers. Each node in the cluster provides active connections for VPN clients. The architecture of clustering OpenVPN access servers involves storing certificates and credentials in a central database such as MySQL or Amazon RDS. But keep in mind some configurations remains local to each cluster node, like the interface to listen on and how to connect to the central database. For this video, we have a setup. We have our network on DigitalOcean. I have a file server, as you can see here, two access server with the public IP addresses, as you can see on the screen, and a MySQL database. I have already set up my round-robin DNS A records for each of the access servers. Now, a DNS round-robin is the simplest solution, providing users with a single address for connections. Each VPN client sequentially tries each IP address in the DNS round-robin record until it successfully connects. If a server fails, the client will automatically attempt to connect to another server in the cluster. One last thing that needs to be done is opening some ports on our access server. You can see those ports on the screen. I've already opened these ports on my access servers. So let's go ahead and start setting up MySQL on DigitalOcean. So as you can see, I'm on my DigitalOcean dashboard. I'm going to click on Create and choose Databases here. From here, I'm going to use my data center region. It's going to be San Francisco for me. We need to choose our VPC network. Again, for me, it's going to be the default SFO3. And here, for the database engine, I'm going to use MySQL. For the database configuration, I'm using just a regular plan here, but please make sure you go through this and choose a plan that it's appropriate for your environment. Then here we're going to give a name to this SQL database. I'm just going to call it CLS SQL. And then if you want to add any tags, we can add here. Once we're done, we're going to click on Create Database Cluster. As you can see, our SQL database is being created. We can continue with the rest of the steps. So we're going to click on Get Started. Here we need to add our trusted sources. So I'm going to add my two access servers here. It's going to be ASCLS 1 and then ASCLS2. So I have my two access servers added as a trusted source here. Basically, for DigitalOcean, we must adjust the trusted sources to improve the database security and allow the incoming connections from each of our nodes. If we skip this step, we won't be able to test any connections to the database servers. So, and then we're going to click on allow these inbound sources only, and we move forward. Here we have the information for our username and password and the host. We will need this in a minute, but we can click on continue here. And we are done here. So again, we're going to come back here for the username, the password, the host, and the port number in a second. But our SQL is being built, so I'm going to wait and pause the video and come back when this is done. So our SQL database is ready. Again, we will need these information, as you can see on the screen, the username, password, host, and port, and the database in a minute. We're going to come back to this as needed. At this point, we need to configure and test the database server connection to our access server. So we're going to log into our access server consoles. So I have two sessions going on, one for ASCLS-2 and one for ASCLS-1 here. First thing, we need to install the MySQL and client library packages. So I'm going to put the commands that we're going to use here on the screen. So I'm just going to type these commands here, and I'll do it on both access servers. Okay. They're done. So I'm going to clear the screen here. Now we're going to connect to our database instance. But the command line is going to be basically MySQL-H, and then the host name, the username, and the port and the database. So I'm going to, again, put the command here on the screen so you can see it. But basically, it's going to be MySQL -H, and then this is our host name, then the username, the port, and our database. And I got all these information from here. We got the username, the host, and the port, and the database. And let's go ahead, run these. So it's asking for the password here. Let me bring up this window here. So let's do side by side. And this is the password. So we're going to go ahead and type this password here. So here we go. Since we got this message, it means that our connection was successful with our first access server. We're going to do the same thing with our second one. So let me go ahead and type the command here for connection, and we're going to type the password again. Here we go. And we have a successful connection here as well on our second access server. So now it's time to set up our cluster. I'm logged into my first access server. Expand configuration and go to cluster. So we're going to toggle the switch that says set up a new cluster here. And then for the node name, I'm just going to leave it as my access server name. This way I can distinguish it later on when I have my cluster up and running. Then when it comes to my SQL settings, we need the host name or IP address, SQL port, and username and password. So what I'm going to do, let's go ahead and do a side-by-side window so we can have both information in front of us. First, we need my SQL host name or the IP address. So the host name is here. I'm just going to copy it and paste it here. The SQL port here for DigitalOcean is 25060. So that's what I'm going to use here. And then for the username is doadmin. And then we need the password. So again, I'm just going to copy the password here and paste it down here. So now I'm going to scroll down where it says that global cluster client connection endpoint, which is optional. This is basically where we're going to type our round robin DNS host name. As I showed earlier on the slide, I have already set up ascls.ovnlab.com, And then for the option of use this DNS hostname for this node, when you're creating a cluster, toggle the switch to yes, and the DNS hostname for new nodes when joining the cluster, again, toggle the switch to yes. When everything is good, we're going to go ahead and click on Save Settings. This is going to take a minute or so. The Access server is going to restart. Here we go. Our Access server is restarted. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And we can see our first node in our cluster. Now, let's head out to our second Access server and do the same thing. So here we go. This is the second Access server. I'm just going to go to cluster. This time we're going to join an existing cluster. So I'm going to toggle the switch here. Again, for the node name, I'm just going to leave it as it is. And we're going to enter our MySQL information again, same as before. Again, side by side, I'm just going to grab my host name here. Paste it here. The port is going to be 2506. The username is going to be doadmin. And then the password, I'm just going to go ahead and copy it from my DigitalOcean dashboard and paste it here. Now scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on Save Settings. The server is going to restart here. And our Access server is restarted. I'm going to go ahead log back in. And now, as you can see, we got the two Access servers in our cluster. So if I even go back to my first Access server and refresh the page, we have the same thing. So now it's time to go ahead and test our cluster. So let's go ahead and bring the Connect app here. We got Robert's account here. We're going to connect as Robert. And here we go, he's connected. Let's do the same thing again. We're going to ping our file server. And as you can see, we are getting a reply. So now it's time to bring one of the servers down. So we can see Robert is connected to our AS CLS1, our first Access server. So let's go ahead and disconnect this Access server. So I'm just going to go ahead switch to admin UI of this Access server here. And here again, we have one active user, that's our Robert. So I'm going to go ahead stop VPN services here. We're going to confirm that. And if you look at our ping, again, it is timing out. And here we go. It just came back on automatically. Now, if I go back to my Access server and refresh this page, we can see that Robert's connection has been transferred to our second Access server. So if I go back to the first Access server admin UI, and we can see that our VPN services are off and it's not running, so I can go ahead and start the VPN services. But no matter how, we can see that we do have a connection. We just got disconnected for a little bit, a few seconds before it got kicked back in and got transferred to our second Access server. One last thing I want to show you is that if you go to our website, openvpn.net, and in the search you type cluster, you're going to see this option, setting up an OpenVPN Access server cluster. You click on this link, you're going to have a good explanation about the cluster, the architecture of cluster, and there is a link here for the tutorial how to set up the Access server cluster. And that goes step by step from prerequisites all the way to the manage your active cluster with the admin web UI. Again, this was a quick overview of setting up a cluster of OpenVPN Access servers for load balancing and redundancy. Thank you very much.